Hey guys, welcome to the Revenue Accelerator with your host, Kat, the lead boss. I have today an amazing human being and someone who's also money magic, basically, when it comes to the actual tangible Excel spreadsheets and systems, but as well as the mindset component. Interestingly enough, I had an exchange and conversation with someone today who was like, well, I don't really work with people with their money mindset. And I was like, well, does money mindset ever actually stop? I think that's always a thing, no matter what level of business we're in. So with that introduction, welcome, Briana. Can you tell us a little bit more, other than maybe what I've shared, about who you are and why you're magical?
Yay! Well, I'm magical because I love unicorns. As a side note, I do have a 6-foot tall light up unicorn on my front lawn.
Yes.
Makes me inspired and happy kind of day to day, speaking of mindset. But let me give you some professional qualifications, not just that I love unicorns. So
Which is enough.
it's plenty. But I call myself the financial bliss mentor, and I'm the CEO of a bookkeeping and financial education company called Bliss Your Biz PBC, which is a public benefit company, meaning that we can actually have our impact match our financial goals, which I think is, for me, it's an extraordinary way to transform our relationships with corporation and that sort of race to the bottom that corporations get into. So I really help mostly women-owned businesses transform their finances and solve for profitability. So I do things like empower business owners and entrepreneurs to create change within their organizations by building financial knowledge, confidence, clarity, joy, spreadsheets, QuickBooks.
I mean, I'm a spreadsheet nerd. I love me some spreadsheets, but I love the confidence, Excel spreadsheet. I know a lot of people are getting triggered right now.
Yeah. So I have a lot of experience in this, and I've been doing work in this area for more than 20 years now, which feels like day to day, I don't really think about it because I'm like, well, I'm not old yet, but I definitely have been doing this a long time, and it came out of my own personal transformation. So I used to work in tech a long time ago, and I lost my son's father, and I landed myself on welfare, got laid off from a job in the tech bust in 2001. So
the first,
many years ago. Yeah. And I landed myself on welfare because, I had to feed my kid, I couldn't be just someone who does whatever they do when they don't have any money, couch surf, whatever. I had to kind of get it together because I had a kid. And it led me to really study money and then accounting. And actually I did a bunch of work in around public advocacy and helping to write legislation for welfare moms, and really looking at how do we make our financial systems kind of better overall. And what I found is that really entrepreneurs are the place that we're going to make the biggest impact, because entrepreneurs are basically responsible for making change in our society.
And right now, currently, single-handedly maintaining and sustaining the economy. I'm just saying,
Yes, just saying.
Just a small role in everything going on. I mean,
Yes. So this is where I realized that I could make the biggest impact, both in my own life and in the lives of the millions. And so I went to work on supporting and educating women entrepreneurs. And ta-da!
Well, I mean, and along the way, there's a lot of money blocks that happen, especially when you're going from a place of being, successful in tech, which everyone, for the most part, was essentially, if they just thought the idea in 2000, 2001, right before the bubble happened and burst, to landing on welfare. I mean, talk about it, something screwing with your head and and especially when it comes to women, money equates to security. So when you have the rug pulled out from underneath you without any reason of your own, it's not like you went and, did this huge screw up in the payroll or anything like that. It was nothing to your, contributions. and then to basically have everything taken away from you to the point where you're dependent on, I mean, talk about a moment of vulnerability,
Yeah, for
of
sure.
being dependent on someone else when that was the last thing you wanted to do, especially when you're trying to provide for your son. And then to come up from that and
Yeah.
basically bootstrap it from welfare, right?
Yeah.
Which is basically the lowest level that you can get to short of being homeless on the street. And building a successful business that provided for your family, getting off of welfare. Like, what were some of the like mindset blocks that you really had to overcome through that journey?
Well, one of them was this idea that um, at every level, there's a new mindset challenge. And, it was like, oh, well, I'll get to this place and then it'll be done. I'll get to this place and it'll be done. I'll get to this place and and by done, I just mean, oh, it'll get easy. It'll get really easy. Things will be fine. But if you continue to want to grow, so like, if you get to 6 weeks and you're like, this is it, I'm done, that's cool. But like, if you want more, if you want to be able to employ people, you want to be able to move to the next level, new level, new devil, right? There's always going to be something that you're going to have to learn and grow in order to actually be profitable, and actually to order to get to the next thing and make sure that you make payroll every week or 2 weeks or month or however you're doing that.
Which is, I think, a whole nother level of stress. It's one thing when you're, kind of a solo entrepreneur with, maybe a couple VAs, and it's really, you're just worried about you and your family, which is a big enough stress. But then when you add on the fact that you're in a way responsible for other people being able to make their livelihood, and this is where I see a lot of businesses starting to teeter too, is going from this solo entrepreneur to having employees.
Yeah, the big
And
jump.
go back and almost regress like a child would to this place of giving to everybody first from themselves, which is what you did when you started your business. And it's kind of this cycle getting duplicated again. And I know that's an area that you kind of focus on when you're looking at profitability and helping people kind of overcome that challenge.
Yeah. So one of the things that's really different about what we do is that, there are a number of firms that you can work with about profitability, but what I discovered is if my clients don't have mindset support, they actually can't make the hump. They can look at the numbers and be like, this is great, but they'll have this kind of wavering up and down income because they're not releasing their blocks. They're not moving through it. They're not preparing themselves for the next level of success. And it's not their fault. I mean, the deal is like, we don't know what it's really going to take to get to the next level, right? Which is why we need supportive people to actually show us the path to get there. But for years, I did it without giving people like deep mindset support. And what I found is like, they would get to whatever edge they were at, and then they couldn't overcome it. Right. And I would spend a lot of time trying to help them with their mindset. And then they'd be mad that they don't have the spreadsheets. Like, you can only do so much, right? They paid for a package, right? You're going to do the thing that you're focused on. And if they can't overcome their deal, right? Because, in accounting, it's like, oh, you're really focused on the numbers. But what I realized is it doesn't work like that. If people are getting what they need, it's not going to go.
Because at the end of the day, I always equate it to like, recipes, right? They have a recipe for success, and it's all about, when you're looking at a home baking scenario versus a commercial baking, it's the same ingredients. It's still flour, eggs, sugar, water, right? Butter, all that stuff. It's just the scale of it is different. And then the process line is different, because at the end of the day, what are we doing? We're trying to create that consistent result for our clients. And that means that, so I always use a cake as an example, and the same ingredients can make a pancake, it can make a big cake, it can make muffins, it can make bread. It's all the same things. But if you're not consistently able to reproduce the results, that's where you're going to hit into the things. And then you start doubting yourself as a baker. You start doubting your capabilities, and down into the depths we go. So I know you talked about, new level, new devil, and I'm going to be a jerk, but sometimes I think it's still the same devil, but in a different, it's like a wolf in sheep's clothing kind of situation where you thought you dealt with it, but you actually hadn't.
I have a client who I've been working with for years. She's like maybe 3 or 4 years in with me now. And she said to me recently, she was like, well, but we keep looking at the same thing. And I was like, yes, we do, because we keep working with it until it's gone, until it's done. Right. And you've taken all this time to get to this place, right? And maybe you're 40 or you're 50 and you've been successful in this way, but you haven't actually gotten through this pattern, and it's taken all this time to get here. You can't expect that one pass at it is going to let it go completely. Some things will. Some things you'll just come into information about and you'll be like, oh, right, that makes sense. Next. But there'll be these patterns, especially emotional patterns. Yes. And I think of it as sort of there's a limbic imprint about money that we get when we're small. And we carry that pattern with us. And so in order to change it, you actually have to change how your nervous system processes money. And that's why we have people work with a money mindset coach specifically, so that they get ongoing work throughout the program, that they really get the emotional. And I don't mean you have the SADs. I mean like how your body processes in an embodied way your relationship with money, which is very different than how you interpret a spreadsheet. Like those things are like wildly divergent, but completely like enmeshed.
Right. Well, it sounds almost like it's like the heart mind connection, right? So when you're looking at a spreadsheet, it's very ego driven. Oh, these are the facts. These are the numbers. It's not emotional, right? Like, I mean, if you just take it
unless it's your money, in which case it's emotional.
Right. Then it's a shit show. So it's like, oh my
God. Exactly.
But right? When you're able, it's like I feel like in business, no matter whether you're looking at your money or making decisions, whatever it is, when you have that heart mind alignment is where you make those leaps and bounds progressions. So what do you see people needing to do to help with kind of making that connection and, rewriting the limbic system and kind of telling a new story to really help them get to that next level without dragging that devil along with them from the previous?
Yeah. So one thing is, if you know that you're anxious about money, you want to look at how do you calm your limbic system when you're about to go look at money. And some things are very practical, like you can do some deep breathing and do some meditation. You can also, like, I also use a milky oat tincture that I get from like a herbalist that like helps calm my nervous system, because I've been working to rewire my own nervous system for the next level. Walk my talk, baby.
Yeah, baby.
So what does it take to like calm you and have you feel peaceful, right? And have you really notice what's going on? So that's one thing. And how, look at things like, are you idolizing your money anxiety? Are you like, this is the way that it's always been. This is, the people, were like, oh, I'm just so busy. And, I can never, and they just sort of idolize busyness. Are you idolizing your money anxiety? Yeah. It's like, oh, everybody has money anxiety. And this thing where there's a thing, I see a lot in activist community where people are like, we just hate wealthy people. And if you have money, we're like mad at you, or you're doing the wrong thing. So you have to deal with this. And by deal with it, I mean, you have to look it dead in the face.
Yep.
Right? And so a lot of that is the willingness to open whatever the door is. And maybe this is not the thing. Maybe it's not that you don't like wealthy people. Maybe it's not that you have anxiety. But I will tell you that if you're struggling with money, there is a thing in there.
There's a lot that I've seen, and maybe it's just my clients, but I've just noted this with other entrepreneurs. And so what I've seen a lot, and it comes from different variations of what you explained, but there's this equation in our heads. And I put everybody in this category of hard work equals money, right? So when we're looking at,
it doesn't work that way.
Right. But if I look at like, just, doing the devil's advocate thing of like, all right, I'm someone stuck in my ways. Hard work equals money. So I've achieved a certain level of success working my patootie off.
That's right.
So in order for me to be more successful, I have to raise the equation. So that means even more work. And this is where I see people get stuck, which is understanding how to actually do the inverse, which is reduce the work and increase the income.
That's right.
So where's that mindset piece happening there when we're looking at this correlation, this what people think is a direct correlation, where it actually can be an inverse correlation?
Well, they think it's a direct correlation because they've always worked for money, right? And because their parents have always worked for money and their families always worked for money. And so this is the limbic imprint, right? They're like, we're going to work for money. And there's a lot of things that you can do, but really what you want to start looking at is how do you leverage your time, and how do you um, there's so many things in here, but one of them is how do you leverage your time, and how do you really focus on what the most important thing is. So if you have, for example, one signature program instead of doing 8 things, how are you going to leverage that? How are you going to make sure that, like, most people are coming into the thing that you want to be doing, and not that you're trying to manage 8 or 10 projects.
Right.
So, hard work, you want to replace the idea of hard work with strategic work. How are we going to be strategic about what our next steps are? So instead of being like, oh, if I add more clients, I'm going to add more hours, maybe you're looking at things like, okay, so instead of one-on-one, now we start moving to group programs.
Yep.
Right. And that's a really big shift. So what I've discovered is at different levels, your business model is going to change. And I think that's the thing we should tell entrepreneurs when they're wee baby entrepreneurs, that look, you're going to get to certain levels and you're going to have to change your business model. And that has to do with money, that has to do with time, that has to do with being able to like manage a certain number of people and no more. And that's why we end up with corporations that are like multi-level, is because we each only have a certain amount of capacity, like full stop. And so we have to look at, so if you're hitting 6 figures, you're going to be ready to leverage probably. If you're hitting $1 million, you're going to probably have to leverage again in some way, where you're going to put in like, middle management or some way of like managing your team. And just at different levels, you're going to have to, again, revamp what is it that's going to have you not work 60 or 80 hours a week, because it's just not sustainable. Right.
Well, it's not what entrepreneurs went into the business of doing, right? So a lot of people get into entrepreneurship not only to create freedom of money, right, which is fantastic, but freedom of time, which is what people forget about. When I always say there's only 2 assets in life, it's either time or money, right? And you're always exchanging one or the other, and there's different quantities. And yes, you can do both, or you can do more than the other. But at the end of the day, that's it. That's what we're exchanging our time for, is money. So
and you actually have 2 budgets, right? You have a time budget and you have a money budget.
Yes.
Your money budget is a budget, and your time budget is your calendar.
Yes.
Right. And one of the things that you really want to look at is, if you haven't done work around your values, or what I call your noble qualities, it's like there's a real focus. We talk about boundaries, right? And how do people find boundaries in their work, and the time boundaries? If you're aligning with your, sometimes people call it your purpose, but if you're aligning with your noble qualities of like, this is what I'm here to do, the things that are outside of your queenly realm, right? Where my unicorns live, things that are outside of my realm, I don't have to pay any attention to. It is not my fault or my responsibility, and I just can let other people handle what's in their realm, right? But you have to know what that is, and you have to have the focus to be able to say yes to what is yours, and do your part, and say no to everything else.
Absolutely. And what's interesting is that's not something that you deal with, just the beginner's level, right? So I see that happening, especially in that precipice, when that person is just about to scale to that next level, all the triggers start happening, right? There's, people call it the upper limit, it's the ceiling, whatever it is. And all of a sudden, it's like the crab that's about to get out of the bucket, and all the other crabs are pulling it back down into the bucket, being like, no, it's not safe out there. And you're like, fuck, I want to get out. I'm going to die here. This boiling bucket.
And that's why a lot of people don't make it.
Right. Because they get pulled back down and they hit that upper limit. And this is, we're coming back full circle of, the mindset work is never done. It's not like this. You achieve a certification. You're like, I am mindset free. I am now can go and conquer anything and everything in the world.
Because you still have a brain. As long as you still have a brain, there's still mindset work to do.
Well, you talked a little bit about this empowerment component of, there's and I talk about this as being like the adult, the boss in your life, and then the child. And the child is the ego. It's the little thing that like self-sabotages you, not on purpose. It's trying to keep you safe. I don't make the ego wrong. And it's about having the conversation between those two entities within you. Yes, we are all schizophrenic, but
Yeah.
also looking at who's driving the car. And you were talking about like, there's the numbers, right? And that's almost like the boss, right? Of being like the very factual, even keeled thing. And then when the emotional side starts happening, it's the little kid, and they've taken over and they're like driving all over the road and they can't even see over the steering wheel and you're about to hit a tree kind of situation. So really asking yourself who's driving the car in your business. And I even have a client where I'll call it out and be like, she got out of the seat again, right? You strapped her into the child seat and it's time to get a new seat because she keeps getting out of it.
Yeah.
Your advice to someone who feels like they've either are being pulled down by the crabs or are hitting that upper limit, or they can't seem to push past that, that ceiling that they're looking to break past.
The big thing is to get support, to jump in with a mindset coach.
Right.
And you're going to need one like basically ongoing forever. And it's a thing that you should plan for in your budget is, how am I getting support?
Yes.
Because if you're intending to grow your business, you're going to need support in a lot of different ways, right? Just like you need staff, you're going to need mindset support. You're going to need someone from the outside who can help, look inside and help you deconstruct these pieces and make them easier for you.
Right. Well, and you have actually something for everyone that actually aligns to this exact concept in terms of
That's right.
So can you share with us that free gift that you guys can go and start getting that little mindset tweaks?
Yeah. So it's called 7 Profitability Hacks, right? We work with profitability. So you can go to blissyourmoney.com/7-profitability-hacks. And then you can just get it.
And so tell us a little bit more about like what you mean by profitability hacks. And then guys, don't worry, the link will be in the show notes.
So most people are not planning in any way to be profitable. They're planning for more. They're planning for, I want to have enough, but it turns out more and enough are not numbers. And which is why you never feel like you have enough. And it always feels like there's more. And you never feel satisfied because you're not planning for profitability, and you don't have the numbers in place to feel like you're achieving and actually moving through and getting what you need. So 7 Profitability Hacks talks about 7 different pieces of getting profitable, including talking about mindset, including talking about numbers. And it really will help you switch how you're thinking about profitability and money in just a couple of pages.
Fantastic. So any parting words to share with our listeners today as it relates to, looking at your profitability in your business and the mindset relationship?
So many things to say. A big thing is, I'm going to give you a big mindset shift right now. In addition to mindset never being done, you're going to have your relationship with money forever, right? So just if you can get your head around the idea that like you and money, you're like married and there's no way out. So how are you going to cultivate your relationship with your beloved? How much attention does money need from you? What do you need from money? And how do you start to unravel the years of damage and, ignoring and putting off, and, just start to consider in what you're doing, how is money at play here? And know that it's going to be with you until you die. And so if it's going to go on forever or take a long time, the best time to start dealing with that is now.
Yep. Awesome. Brianna, thank you so much for joining us today. Guys, make sure you check her out. And also blissyourmoney.com is her website. There's also a lot more information there. So be sure to connect with her and get your hands on those 7 profitability hacks, or 7 profitable hacks for you guys to be able to start leveling up and scaling your business. Thanks so much.
Thank you.